Welcome into NFL Daily. I am your host, Matthew Peterson, running through the latest NFC playoff picture following Week 16. We still have Monday Night Football, but it's two AFC teams, so Week 16 effectively in the books for the NFC. So let's run through the NFC playoff picture, some clinching scenarios, everyone's path to the playoffs, and all that good stuff. We'll start things off by looking at the current playoff picture for the NFC. You got the Eagles at the 1 seed still, despite losing to the Cowboys with Gardner Minshew. The Vikings on their heels at the 2 seed. The Niners, who would have thought Brock Purdy would have San Francisco still number 1 seed contention entering the home stretch. The Bucs with a huge win over Arizona on Christmas night. They sit at 4. Dallas has clinched a playoff spot, and they're probably going to finish as the 5 seed. The G-Men and Washington rounded out at 6 and 7. We still have some teams in the hunt. We'll run through everyone in just a moment. Really quickly, though, just in case you're wondering what the AFC playoff picture looks like, we won't spend much time on this because the Chargers have yet to play today, and that's going to be a huge factor for what the AFC looks like. But that is the AFC playoff picture. Go Jags. I think we'd all love to see someone. We'd all love to see people in pools in Jacksonville watching playoff football. Now, I want to ask this question before we get into any, crazy, wild, clinching scenarios and everyone's path to the playoffs. Who is your Super Bowl sleeper? Right before we started filming, producer Patrick Seatman and I were saying, I don't think any team would want to face a Packers team that's not at home where they have struggled, but on the road with a chip on their shoulder. Last time the Packers were a team like that, I think it was 2010, and they won the Super Bowl. So, with that being said, let's look at the number 1 seed, and we'll work our way down. So, the Philadelphia Eagles at 13-2, coming off a loss to the Cowboys. Gardner Minshew played really well. The turnovers were just too much to overcome for Philly. But the next 2 games looks like this. They are home against the Saints and home against the Giants. A lot of teams need the Eagles to lose out. I don't really see that happening with home games against the Saints and the Giants. Now, the number 1 seed path for them is really simple. Win one of those 2 games and you've got it done. Or any loss by the Cowboys, the Vikings, and the Niners also clinches it for the Birds. Now, as for the Vikings, let's check out their playoff picture right now. They're coming off a big win against the Giants, really cool whiteout. Week 17, they go to the frozen tundra. And Week 18, they go to Soldier Field. So 2 big road divisional matchups to close out the season for the 12-3 Vikings. Their number 1 seed path is they need to win out, and they need the Eagles to lose out. Remember, primetime Kirk Cousins screwed them over in Week 2? And that cost them the tiebreaker against the Eagles. So they need to win out and have a better record outright over Philadelphia. As for the Niners, they still actually do have a shot at the 1 seed. It's a long shot, though. We'll run through it, though. But they are coming off a win against the Commies. Week 17, they are at the Raiders, and that's always a great rivalry. Week 18, they close it out home against the Cardinals. In my eyes, they're really battling to try and get the 2 seed, but there is a path to the 1 seed. It's still available for them. They need to win out. They need the Eagles to lose out. And they need the Vikings to lose a game, right? That is the only path for the 49ers to reach the number 1 seed. Moving on here, let's get to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What a huge win that was on Christmas night. They were down 2 scores in the 4th quarter, and they come back to win 19-16 in overtime. Credit to Brady. Taking down Trace McSorley, that deserves a round of applause. Week 17, they are home against the Panthers, and that is a huge game. And then they are home against the Falcons in Week 18. For them, their path to clinch, win against the Panthers, or a loss by Carolina in Week 18. So even if they were to lose to the Panthers in Week 17, that does not mean they are out and Carolina is in. The next 2 weeks are going to be big for the NFC South. Remember, look at the NFC playoff picture right now. You've got the Bucs at number 4, 7-8. Carolina 6-9. We'll get to the Saints later on as well, also at 6-9. The Falcons are out after their loss to the Ravens in Week 16, but the NFC South is going to come down to the wire. Let's talk about the boys. How about Dallas? Week 16, huge win against the Eagles, 40-34. They're just kicking themselves right now because had they held on to beat the Jags, which they had a 3-score lead in, they'd be in much better contention to potentially win the division. Now, their games look like this. They've got the Titans on Thursday Night Football, and then they close out the year with the Commanders. Now, they can clinch the number 5 seed, which is realistically their best shot right now because they're probably not going to overtake Philadelphia and win the division. With a win at all, just the next 2 weeks, or a Giants loss, which seems like the Cowboys are relatively penciled in right now for that number 5 seed. Now, if they are shooting for the 1 seed, which of course they are, but it is a long shot, they need to win out. They need the Eagles to lose out. They need the 49ers to drop a game. They need the Vikings to drop a game. I just don't see all of those things happening. That's one hell of a parlay. I think the Cowboys and most likely the Bucs at the 4 spot, that is your playoff matchup that we can almost pretty much guarantee at this point that it's going to be Dallas at 5, at the number 4, which will be the NFC South winner, and that's looking like the Bucs, but you never know. I'm just going to bet on Brady the last 2 weeks, and man, that gets me to this question here. This is kind of the big question. Will the Cowboys win a playoff game? They sort of choked last year at home against the Niners. That was a really good Niners team. Not taking anything away from San Francisco. But this Cowboys team, it's not just like make the playoffs, right? This is playoff win for Mike McCarthy. It might not be out of the realm that if they were to make the playoffs and lose back-to-back years in the playoffs in the first round, they might decide we are not meeting our expectations. So will the Cowboys win a playoff game? That is what I want to ask you guys. Let me know in the comments section below. Now, we're going to get to some other playoff clinching scenarios in just a moment, but today's show is sponsored by Rocket Money. Do you know how much your subscriptions really cost? Most Americans think they spend around $80 a month on their subscriptions. The actual cost is much closer to $200. That is right. You could be wasting hundreds of dollars each month on subscriptions you don't even know about. There's this app that I love using that takes care of all that for me. It's called Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill. Now, the app shows all of your subscriptions in one place and then cancels for you whatever you no longer use or don't want anymore. Rocket Money can even find subscriptions that you didn't know you were paying for. You may even find out that you've been double charged for a subscription. To cancel a subscription, all you have to do is press cancel, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Get rid of all these useless subscriptions that you signed up for one time, a 7-day free trial, completely forgot, and you've been getting $8.99, $9.99 taken out of your bank account every single day. Head on over. Now, you got to go to rocketmoney.com/NFL Daily. rocketmoney.com/NFL Daily. I have that link for you all in the comments and the description of today's show. Let's talk about the New York Football Giants. They are coming off a tough loss against the Vikings. Got a late 2-point conversion, but a 61-yard field goal. Incredible stuff. Handed them the L. Now, Week 17, they got the Colts. That should be a good game for the Giants in terms of good outlook right there. Week 18 at the Eagles. So they don't have to win out or anything to make it in. They're somewhat firmly in, but not a guarantee just yet. For them, it's win and in, right? You beat the Colts. Hell, you could play the Eagles, who might be resting all their starters, and that could be a viable way to get in. We've seen that happen before. Or losses from Seattle or the Washington Commanders, that's also going to get the Giants in. Right now, they are slated to be the 6th seed, right ahead of the Washington Commanders, and that's why that huge Sunday night game in Week 15 is having big consequences for not just the Giants, but the Commanders, who are currently the 7th seed right now, which would put them on a collision course with the Minnesota Vikings. Now, Vikings, 49ers, I don't know if there's a team you'd rather play between those two, but you'd probably rather be the higher seed, play the lower seed, excuse me. Now, for Washington, they got the Browns coming up and the Cowboys. Now, their tiebreakers are actually pretty easy. Thanks to that loss against the New York Giants in the first go-around, their clinching scenario looks like this. Win, they're in. Plus, losses by Seattle, Lions, and Packers this upcoming week. Even though they're coming off a bad loss against the 49ers, they still have a pretty decent path to the playoffs. They don't need a ton of outside help. It is in their control right now. They are currently in the playoff picture. All they have to do is take care of business, win some games, and they can even get some help with some losses like the Seahawks, the Lions, and the Packers, even if they don't close out the season well. All right, moving on to Seattle right now. We get to the first team that is outside of the playoff picture. They're coming off a cold loss to the Chiefs last week, 24-10. Their upcoming schedule looks like this. They have the Jets and they have the Rams coming up. So, two teams outside of the playoff picture coming to their house. Now, Seattle has the head-to-head over Detroit, which is why they are just a hair above them right now in the hunt. Now, for Seattle, here is their clinching scenario. Seahawks win out, boom. Commanders loss, Packers loss. That is how they can clinch, right? They need a little bit of help for sure. If the Commanders win out and the Seahawks win out, that's not going to cut it for them. They need to win out, and that is going to help them. That with a Commanders loss and a Packers loss will get Pete Carroll into the playoffs in a season no one saw coming whatsoever. Let's talk about, I think, America's underdog right now. That's the Detroit Lions. I think everyone's pretty much pulling for Detroit to get into the playoffs here. They are coming off a tough loss against a Panthers team that just refuses to quit. Now, Week 17, they got the Bears. Week 18, they go to Lambeau. Seattle, like I said, has the head-to-head over Detroit from like Week 2 of the season, Week 3. So for them, it is win out. Next two games, Chicago and Green Bay. Plus, they need a loss from Seattle or Washington. How about Green Bay, though? A team that started 4-8 and has won 3 in a row, and Aaron Rodgers looks like he's about to completely turn around this season, which appeared to be lost after a home loss on Thursday night to Tennessee. Their next two games, they've got the Vikings, they've got the Lions. Now, they lost to the Vikings in Week 1 in Minnesota. They're going to have the Vikings this time at their spot in Green Bay. Week 18 against Detroit. The Packers have won 3 in a row, like I mentioned. They're coming off a big win against Miami, a comeback win. They were down 20-10 and closed the game on a 16-0 run. Now, here's their path to the playoffs. They need to win out. They need some help. If winning out's not going to do it for them. Like, they need a little bit help from the outside. They need the Commanders to lose one of their two games, which is against the Browns or the Cowboys, or the Giants lose out, and they've got the Colts, which doesn't feel like a loss, but this Giants team, after a great start, has kind of stuttered lately, and they've got the Eagles. So Packers win out against the Vikings and the Lions, plus most likely one of these two things being a Commanders loss. Now, if you are looking for more NFL playoff pictures and updates from the NFC to the AFC all the way until the end of Week 18, hit that big red button and subscribe. We're trying to get 25 new subs off of today's video. So, hey, if you're one of the 25 new subscribers, type me in the comment section below so we can give you some credit for joining the show. All right, we're moving on to Carolina now. Week 16, a win against the Lions, a huge one to keep their playoff hopes moving. Week 17, they're at the Bucs. Week 18, they are at the Saints. For them, it's simple. Win out, you win the NFC South. It is as simple as can be. Now, New Orleans is hanging on by a thread right now. They knocked off the Brownies on the road in a Frozen Bowl, pretty much. Week 17, they are at the Eagles. Week 18, home against the Panthers. They need a win-out scenario for them, and they need the Bucs to lose out. So the Saints, definitely a long shot, but they are still in contention. That is the NFC playoff picture with some clinching scenarios, some playoff path. There's a lot of craziness still, a lot of chaos to be unfolded. We'll keep you guys up to date here at the channel. So hit that big red button and subscribe.